Hello everyone, it's Leon here, and Nath.
Hello.
From... What are you exactly now?
I'm the editor of PlayStation Access.
Yes, and former OPMer, obviously. You went out to see The Last of Us, which is what we're about to watch here. Before we sort of start this scene off, can you just sort of set up what we're about to watch?
Yeah, sure. So this is, you're partway through the story, so at this point Joel is travelling with Tess and Ellie, and you're on the outskirts of Boston, so you've left the quarantine zone, which is where the game starts, and that's where Ellie has grown up, and you've gone into, you travel through a skyscraper which is tilted onto its side, and then you reach this underground section which I think is part of the subway, and this is basically the last point before you go out to a rendezvous point. I don't know what happens after that because the gameplay demo that we played finished after this. This is like the climax of it.
Yeah.
So this is the darkest, scariest bit.
So what we're seeing here, there's clickers and runners, aren't they? So can you just explain a little more about these guys?
Yeah, for the first time they kind of revealed about the infected that there are 3 stages. Stage 1 they're called runners, where it's people, I think it's taking on the impulsive characteristics that the ants that first inspired the cordyceps virus in humans, the enemy, the infected in The Last of Us. So they will go up to, they will climb on top of leaves, they will climb up high, and they don't really know why they're doing it. And in the same way, the runners, they're at that stage. They're people still. They're human beings. Oh my goodness, that's horrific. But they are compelled to spread the spores. By the time you get to be clickers, your face has exploded from within thanks to the fungus.
Yeah.
And you are a walking mushroom, and you have echolocation. You don't have vocal cords or eyes, so you kind of this walking, clicking.
And they're tough to kill, aren't they? They're more like they'll hit you in one. They'll kill you in one hit.
Yeah, they come right at you. And what's the kind of
really is.
What we're seeing here, do you want to go back to the I don't want to say murder, to the takedown before this? I mean, the first thing is that the combat was much stealthier than I had imagined it was.
Yeah.
It really is. There's like a hardcore survival edge to it. Every time you take someone down, you're making a decision. So in this instance, you grab people because sound is a huge part of how the enemies are attracted to you.
Yeah.
It says triangle to shiv. You have to build a shiv in part of the crafting menu, which will come up in a moment. And it's like a resource that will go down. I think you can use one shiv 3 times. So
Right.
it's quicker than strangling them, and I think quieter as well. But you are using up resources.
Yeah.
And it's it's horrendous, and every point of violence, and they talk about the big influence being No Country for Old Men and the Coen Brothers in general. I think the abruptness and the realness of that violence, how it's it's not glorified, it just happens.
Yeah.
And this picking up a brick, I mean, I looked at this when I played this section. I looked at that woman for a long time before I eventually beat her head in with a pipe.
Yeah.
And the same thing here. Whoever's playing as Joel, once you get one of them isolated like that, because if you make a noise, lots of them rush at you, and basically when they rush at you, the only thing you can do is run away.
Yeah.
You cannot. The game mechanics are not precise enough, and they're not built for you to. Joel isn't going to headshot 3 guys and then walk out of the room, dusting off his jacket. It's just not what happens in this game. So once you have one of them like this, you just want to. And there's like a panic in you. You want to kill them. You want to stop them from being alive as soon as possible.
Yeah. I mean, the shotgun blast from the trailer originally was that sort of kind of
Thump.
Yeah, set the level of what it was going to be. So here's one of the clickers.
I mean, at this point, this was the last guy I had to kill because that's the ladder to get out of this room. So when I killed this clicker, I had a lead bar and I ran up to him as fast as I could, knowing he was the last guy, and I smashed him, and it felt amazing. And this is the point. This is a headshot.
Yeah, but he got all that fungal kind of stuff being knocked out of the way.
And this guy is, so even if you nail him,
yeah,
I think it takes 2 for him to actually go down.
Did you see, it's not in here, did you see any of the listening ability that Joel uses to sort of highlight the characters in the world, the enemies in the world?
Yeah, I did, yeah. I think you hold L2 and he will crouch even lower, he moves slower, so it's harder to get around. But the idea is, and I think when people will say, oh, it's just Batman's detective vision. Obviously there's I did that to that person as well. There's a penalty for it because you move slower, but he is then able to sense. It's like being really, really quiet, when you're suddenly on edge, and listening for every movement of everything. And you can see 3 people through walls, and it's just a nice way. It's like this. It reminded me more than anything of the stealth in Dishonored. Where you can see-through walls for a limited amount of time, and it doesn't ruin it. It just allows you to plan properly, so it feels more satisfying.
Yeah. I mean, this sequence here looks quite panicky. Is it that kind of like if when they see you, they find you, or it all kicks off, you have a suddenly kind of like oh hell crap moment and just peg it?
If your plan goes wrong, yeah. So basically, what you would do is you'd look through listen mode. Sorry.
Yeah.
You'd scout out where they all are. You'd try and pick off 1 or 2 of them from behind, and then you'd maybe see I've got this many shots left. He's got a shotgun currently. This guy. What I did, not knowing how many of them there were in this room, I threw a Molotov onto that one that you saw who was crouching down eating someone. That sent all of them running towards me. I shotgunned a couple of them, and then I ran around the room blindly shooting people with my rifle, with my handgun, because I mean, this is the effect of the Molotov. They die quick, but they die loud. Yeah,
and then that draws everyone in.
So if he was hidden somewhere else with maybe another Molotov to kill a group, or if he had a gun ready, maybe shooting them makes them.
You can use bottles and things. You can throw things to actually draw them to an area, and so he could have thrown an empty bottle at that guy. That would have drawn them all in, and then you could have Molotoved them. Is that sort of the tactic you can use?
I was so panicked though, because I did not think that the game was going to be this scary. So I was not thinking that clearly. Although look, I mean, he's been found in this room. Yeah. Because he's been Clicker has been alerted to his presence.
So we're seeing that was a crafting system we just saw then.
Yeah, I want to pause on that for a second.
Yeah, I'm going to bring it back.
This is what they were talking about, the basic choices that you can make as you go into combat. So basically these are the things that you can collect: batteries for your torch, blades, bindings, rags, alcohol, explosive, and sugar. I can't remember what the sugar's for. They did mention it.
I know it's a rag and alcohol makes a medical kit, doesn't it?
Yeah. Or a rag and a blade can make a shiv.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a binding. So you're making choices. Am I gonna? You can expect to take
heal
more damage,
weapon, or
so basic defensive, offensive things.
You can strengthen weapons, can't you? So if you made a blade and a melee weapon, you'd make essentially a pickaxe, and that also.
Well, he's about to make a stick with a nail through it, which is, as we all know, more deadly than just a stick.
Yes, and it strengthens the weapons and makes them more powerful.
In that kind of Dead Rising way, there is even your melee weapons, even the heavy metal ones, have like a hit count. Yeah, and they will degrade after a few and snap in half.
Do you get sort of? Is there any kind of warning? Do you know, or do you just?
There's a bar. It's like a little life bar, which is how many hits. It's really sensitive.
Yeah, because I guess you want to know before you go into a fight how many whacks you've got.
Yes, I guess. Absolutely. Yeah. And this, the crafting and binding reminded me a bit of Far Cry. You see him binding up his arm, like in a sort of a token, I'm fixing myself kind of a way. And it's absolutely kind of in a way that games I love, like the first Dead Space and survival horror games, although they don't like this to be called a survival horror game, it's a survival action game. But old survival horror games will do that resource management. The first time that happened to me, I think maybe because I'd seen this trailer just before we started playing, you kind of think, I'll fight him off. I've taken a bit of a win. What happens is your tendons come out of your neck, and you just get a black screen, and it's really abrupt. It's as abrupt as this. If they get that close, you're just.
But dead. They said that the clickers are basically they will kill you straight away. There's no escaping. It is incredibly gory, to the point where I can't quite almost grasp how gory it is.
Horrible. Just sort of transfixed by these, and I think that for all that they were talking about, this being character driven and an emotional game, and how they were the first time I spoke to them just over a year ago, they talked quite derisively about basically I think they were talking about Resident Evil, but games which go endlessly into the reasons behind things. Yes. And I think they're right about that, but at the same time, coming up with a cool reason or a cool enemy, this enemy is like nothing I've ever seen before, and I am fascinated by them and scared by them. Yeah. And the descriptions that they had, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and in stage 2, which we don't see here, the fungus starts growing out of, that's why they end up blind. The fungus goes from your brain through your eyes.
I've seen pictures, they look like those little thin mushrooms, but coming out and displacing the eyes.
I had a toy from the real Ghostbusters, Egon, and Egon's eyes used to pop out, and it looked like that, but pink and horrible. And there was one scene from the longer playthrough which we did where we reached before we'd been attacked by anyone. We were sort of following. We were on our way to the rendezvous, and there was some dead, military patrols that we were finding.
Yeah.
And then there was a body of a clicker propped up against the wall, and he looked like he was sitting down, and obviously you can't tell if they're alive or dead just by looking at them, but this guy was definitely dead because he was grown into the wall, and the fungus had grown all around him and actually stopped the door, so we had to prise him, Joel in the playthrough had to put his foot on the door and prise this guy's shoulder away from the wall. And the fact that he was just incredibly eerie, the fact that he'd grown into his surroundings and been, like the whole world, but this particular man had been overtaken by nature. It was really striking, and I think that as much as anything, and the noise of these things, the way that they kind of screech and click.
The clicks, it reminds me in a weird way of things like The Grudge and stuff, almost made me think of Japanese horror films the first time I heard it, that slightly unearthly kind of noise.
Yeah, it's unearthly, there's an otherness to it, for sure.
Cool, okay, well this is coming up to the horrible ending a second time round.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
cool.
The Last of Us, scarier than I thought, with a basic underpinning of the Uncharted mechanics, but basically something completely new.